Debunking Singapore Youth for Climate Action, debunking Lastrina, and debunking climate use in general all over the world. So let us start.
Negotiations have once again been closed to observers, interventions have been limited, and our voices have been silenced. Now that you have finally given us a space to express ourselves, listen to what we have to say.
So poor Lastrina, so they did not include you in their negotiation. Maybe it's because you are low ranked in hypocrisy, in the hierarchy of rank hypocrisy, maybe because you are the lowest. Therefore, you won't get to enjoy the benefits of trading carbon credits, carbon taxes, green subsidies, and ESG consulting dollar. You're not well connected nor resourceful enough. So what do you really have to offer to the likes of Greta Thunberg, Al Gore, John Kerry, or Greenpeace? At the top of the hierarchy, of the rank hypocrisy hierarchy, we have the well-connected, rich, but wrong. And look at you, Lastrina. You are not well-connected, not rich, but you are still wrong. So yes, listen to us, listen to us, listen to us. We need attention, we need attention, we need attention.
Leaders expressed that never have the stakes been so high. The fate of humanity is on the table, and that we are the first generation to feel the impacts of climate change and the last generation that can do something about it. They were right. The stakes have never been so high. But if the fate of humanity is on the table, then where is the action you so boldly talk about? Action, not empty promises, will save our population from starving, dying of thirst, and perishing in floods.
So there's three big alarmist claims here. One, population is starving. The world population is starving. Number two, people are dying of thirst. Number three, people are perishing from floods. So firstly, malnutrition. There are hungry people in the world, but world hunger has dramatically improved in the last 50 years. Maybe Lastrina is too young and simple, but it would not hurt Lastrina to trace the history of environmentalism, the environmental movement, and her own movement's history. And she could see Paul Ehrlich making the same exact claim as her. And Paul Ehrlich said, the battle to feed humanity is over. In 1970s, hundreds and millions of people were starved to death in spite of any kind of cash programs embarked upon. Now, he said that in 1968, and he was predicting 1970s that humanity, hundreds and millions of people will starve to death. And Paul Ehrlich has been 180 degrees wrong and still not repentant for his alarmism. Yet Lastrina repeated the same alarmism 50 years later. As you can see, per capita calories from for the world has increased since 1960. If you don't believe me, you can scan this QR code and check. The source of the data is from Our World in Data, is from Oxford Martin University. Moreover, peak farmland is here. We already passed peak farmland. The most land-intensive human activity is farming. So, over the last 50 years, we require 65% less land than we did in 1961 to produce the same amount of crop. This is thanks to commercial fertilizers, tractors, commercial pesticides, and better varieties of crops. So if environmentalists look at this, environmentalists should go on the street dancing and celebrating this fact, because the less land we use for farming, the more land we give back to environment. And the environmentalists should celebrate. But environmentalists cannot celebrate because environmentalism told environmentalists to be angry all the time. And her second point, people are dying from thirst. Well, okay, source please. What are you really talking about? May I have some statistics that back up your claim? But let's just say I believe you, Lastrina, for one moment. Let's just say you care about people going thirsty, people dying from thirst. If you really care about world's dehydration, then you should know that clean water comes from desalination, clean water comes from filtration, and even technology like reverse osmosis and all these technology, all this machinery, all this industrial process to provide a lot of clean water needs cheap energy, and that comes in the form of fossil fuels. And her third point, people perishing from floods. Excuse me, let me quote the IPCC, your recognized scientific authority, back into your face. According to the latest IPCC AR6 assessment report, global they have found the technical report, and the technical report is different from the summary for policymakers. The summary for policymakers is a misrepresentation of the technical report. So the technical report says that they find low confidence in detecting rising trends over multi-decades flood trends. So in short, over multi-decades, the flood trends are not rising. They cannot detect it. So the page is there. The PDF page is there. You can check it out. Moreover, climate-related deaths have fallen over 98% over the last 100 years. That's not just people dying from cloud, which is your original claim. Let me add in floods, droughts, storm, wildfire, and extreme temperature. People dying from the climate. People are not dying from the climate. We have improved tremendously. If environmentalists look at these statistics, environmentalists should celebrate, but environmentalists cannot celebrate because environmentalism is a doctrine that tells environmentalists that they should be angry all the time.
Stop the carbon colonialism. We, the youth, demand that parties reach an agreement that closes the ambition gap and keep the temperature increase below 1.5 degrees.
Well, at least we can half agree that carbon colonialism is no good, green colonialism is no good, because green colonialism is about preventing developing countries from developing. One common example of this is green financing, where banks stop funding coal plants in developed countries. This prevent developing countries to use cheap, reliable fossil fuels, and this will ultimately prevent their development. So I agree with you. Green colonialism is bad. Carbon colonialism is bad.
Developed countries must take the lead based on their historical responsibility and their respective capabilities.
Look, yes, green colonialism is bad. There are poor, less developed countries, but there are also poor people in rich countries. And raising the carbon tax, having expensive ESG criteria will cause goods inflation, and it will start cutting out jobs. What about the poor people in rich countries? Carbon taxes, expensive ESG will hurt them ultimately. They are always the first to get hit, and they are always hit the worst. Environmentalists want to feel good, and you should pay for them to feel good.
We call for a legally binding agreement that is no longer mitigation-centric, but acknowledges the need for strong adaptation measures, a bold loss and damage mechanism, technology transfer, capacity building, as well as finance flowing from north to south.
So everything that Lastrina demanded, everything that she wanted, from mitigation measures, adaptation measures, finance, technology, these are all made possible due to fossil fuels. This is how developing countries develop to developed countries. She should advocate for fossil fuels if she really care about poor countries in the world. Can she? Okay, so if Lastrina and the Singapore Youth for Climate Action and global climate youth all over the world, if they're intellectually honest, if they really care about the world, if they really care about humanity, if they really care about environment, then they should acknowledge these 4 points. First, they should acknowledge renewables are expensive, inefficient, and never gonna replace fossil fuels. They should also not deny and acknowledge and accept the dramatic progress made by fossil fuels over the last 150 years. And they should also accept that there is no climate crisis. And Lastrina should not place the environmental needs above developmental needs for both developing countries and developed countries. And people like Lastrina should, and all the environmentalists all over the world should acknowledge that all the environmentalist solutions and suggestions, they are all pro-human suffering with little or no real benefits at all.